Welcome to Hack Talks, brought to you by the NetWitness Incident Response Team. Your weekly dive into the hottest picks, the strangest twists, and you couldn't make this up moments in global cybersecurity. Every week, we break down what's happening out there, challenge a little bit of conventional thinking, and of course, we crown this week's epic fail. My name is Gordon Dixon, your host in Glasgow, Scotland, and I'm joined as always by Stefano Macalia, the director based in Rome, Italy. Ciao, Stefano.
Ciao, guys.
And James Sobel, Senior Manager in Merritt Island, Florida. Hi, James.
Hey from the Space Coast.
You will be assimilated.
All right, let's get started with In the News, the stories that grabbed our attention this week. There's no shortage of eyebrow raisers. And James, you're kicking us off with what stopped you mid-scroll this week.
Oh, holy Arrakis, right? I mean, apparently our friends at Shai Hulud have released a new worm, and they are Shai Hulud. I love going after the Dune names there. I think that should be more prevalent in cybersecurity. Anyway, right? This is a supply chain issue, right? They are messing around with NPM packages, and they're going after the secrets you have attached to your supply chain and workflows. And this is a huge problem for SaaS companies, organizations building internal apps, regulatory and compliance, right? How do you know that that update is accurate? I think the challenge here is, you hit the update button, and for 99% of folks, especially those who may be on the end user angle of things here, right? Update and it's trusted. And what a great angle for an attack, right? Right, to basically publish malicious packages that get into the update stream and allow the attacker to gather information and ultimately give them an entryway into your organization. This isn't new. We've been hearing about supply chain for a while, but this one definitely is another wake-up call that organizations need to put controls around this. They need to tighten the guardrails, need to understand dependencies. This is all the bottom of IT and security, right? This isn't the fun stuff. This is the everyday stuff, and it needs to be done and it needs to be addressed. Guys, have you heard about this? What do you think?
Well, surely, as you anticipated, is another wake-up call for, let's say, our traditional interlocutors. And again, in this case, the typical question is why we do not intercept this problem beforehand. So every now and then we discuss about, let's say, spotting vulnerabilities, spotting 0 days, spotting, let's say, difficult to find, difficult to track exposures. But in more cases, and this is the typical topics here, we found that we just, let's say, left the door locked, but with the keys on the other side of the door. So that is, the thing. And Gordon, what you think about it?
Well, oh my gosh. So over the course of this series, I've learned so much talking to the both of you. And one of the first things I learned was, patch, update, when security messages come out, make sure that you're up to date and up to speed. And now we're hearing that there is potential vulnerabilities there as well. So what do we do? How much good faith do we put in to the things that we were leaning into so strongly to ensure that our systems, our users, our networks were protected?
Well, from my perspective, before we pass over the ball to James again, I think that one topic is always to trust vendors, trust, let's say, frameworks, trust the typical best practices, but from the other perspective, keep our eyes well open about any potential additional problems that can arise that we do not account for at the beginning. So monitoring, keep an eye on the behavioral systems and behavioral analysis and advanced threat hunting exercises are always the keys to ensure that our detection, our resiliency is at the proper level. James, what do you think?
Yeah, to kind of wrap this one a little bit, I would say, riffing off of what you just said, Stefano, it's trust but verify. Trust that you need to have all of the infrastructure in place. There's no easy button. You got to do the work. And great, bring in tools and AI and other things to help you do the work better, faster, but verify. You need to know what's happening. You need to be the human in the loop in order to put those guardrails in place. When you do these things, then you have the situation where these types of attacks can be mitigated and dealt with. But when you've tried to take the shortcut, the easy way, I mean, I think that's a hack talk lesson, right? The shortcut usually gets you in trouble. So trust but verify, folks.
That's a good James. A good mot.
Excellent. Thanks for that, and a really great way to sort of reassure people that it is possible to stay vigilant, but there is work to be done. So, Stefano, what's caught your eye this week?
Okay, this week's 0 days didn't go after random desktop apps or very strange, let's say, weaknesses. They go straight to the big iron, the firewalls, the MDM servers, the thing that we like to think as the grows ups in the room, typically. Not exactly in these most recent days, but in the tradition of the cybersecurity, we always think that firewalls and VPN concentrators are well structured, well protected, well hardened platforms and systems to potentially face an attack or a vulnerability. But this week, and this is coming from the last year, 2 years time, is not exactly the case. On the perimeter, the PAN-OS user ID authentication portal from the Palo Alto turned out to have a buffer overflow that lets anyone on the internet who can see it send a specially crafted packet and end up running codes as root on the firewall. Inside the network, Ivanti EPMM is still playing 0-day bingo with earlier pre-out RSCs that we already discussed in the past, now joined by the new vulnerability CV 2026-6973, where a logged-in admin can quietly escalate to full device takeover because of the sloppy input validation. And to make it in a nutshell, if the PAN-OS is the iLock, Ivanti EPMM is the remote control for everyone and everything inside the ship. So having these weaknesses all together as a chain of attack can really create a lot of troubles. James, what do you think?
Wow. What is it? It's 2026 and we're still talking about input validation. I think that was a lesson I learned in undergrad, right? I mean, maybe development 101. Come on. We've got to take care of these things. Maybe that's something, we've talked about AI, bug fixes and stuff like that. Maybe these things are so mundane. That's a tool, that's a use case where AI is going to help us. They're just going to fix those things that humans can just not perceive. We just can't fix those. And if my comment here is that piece, that's what shocks me, that crazy Hollywood-esque exploits. They are just bread and butter. Let's go and let's go after the people controlling the game, right? I mean, let's not just play bingo, but let's fix it so we can win. What a crazy story. Gordon, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting that there's a reason why these groups pick these vulnerabilities, because they know very well that a lot of folk aren't paying close attention to these parts of the process, parts of the system. So this isn't a lucky guess that people are not looking after these parts properly. They are going after them because they know that folk sometimes leave things lying around that haven't been checked, that haven't been looked after, that haven't been updated, or haven't been secured. So I think, the place you don't want them to look, the place you don't want folk to go or to check to see whether things are right, that's exactly where people are going to go to next, because they know where our weak spots are. They know the places we overlook or don't attend to on a regular basis. And I think that's a real wake-up call for everybody, isn't it?
Resistance is futile.
Now on to the moment of truth, this week's epic fail. This is where we look at a cyber blunder, a slip up, or a downright questionable decision, and we rate it on our epic fail scale from 0 to 10. 0 is basically an accounting error, something mostly harmless, and a 10 is the full what the FIM were we thinking. So let's break down today's contender. And James, you are bringing us this week's epic fail. What have you got for us?
I'm bringing the full FIM. What were they thinking? This is a tale that reads like something out of a security awareness training seminar, right? This is the 101 kind of thing, where, a contractor is leaving a share clearly labeled of interest, right? And leaving that available so that others can easily access and understand, not just find some keys or maybe some tokens that'll help them access some systems, but the entire infrastructure, how those systems were built, right? This is someone using GitHub as a sync repository to just store and sync some information and forgetting that GitHub is a public service. That's epic fail enough. To me, that's a pretty high scoring epic fail. But this one is brought to us by CISA, right? That's right. The Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency. Security is in the name twice. Cybersecurity, Security Agency. And yet, one of their contractors created a share called private, right? I mean, I know that'll keep everyone out, but they put it in a public space and they shared the keys to the kingdom, the keys to the castle, and then they shared the blueprints on how the castle was built. I mean, it just doesn't get any worse than that. Huge blunder, right? And to me, this pushes it into 10 territory. They didn't find it, right? It was another researcher who was looking for public information or security information stored on this repository. They found this and alerted, and they had to publicly disclose in order for this to be taken care of and restricted. So to me, this puts the epic in epic fail, just like CISA's putting the security in CISA. Stefano, what do you think about this one?
I have a few words to say, my friend. I think this is an epic 10, and it's not just an epic 10. I think this is on a different scale because we are discussing basically of one of the most respected cyber entity in the world that has been victimized by this contractor, which I am assuming was signing before starting any, let's say, contract with the CISA, very strong legal obligations regarding the way they manage the data, the way they store the data, the way they destroy the data once they finish their job. So this, for me, is really on a different scale than the traditional epic fail we discussed. I am not downsizing the other epic fails we discussed, but guys, we are discussing here about people that should be appointed to manage critical data and potentially access critical databases are one of the most important infrastructures in the world without caring about where they stored this thing. Even just considering the relatively small fact that they moved data into a GitHub, into a public, let's say, repository, is already no sense. If we think that the content is from CISA, if the content is from the cybersecurity, this goes on another level. So really terrible epic fail, James. Thanks for showing this one. And I think they will be, let's say, revamped into our next year epic fail.
Fails of all time.
Yes. Gordon,
weigh in on this.
Yeah, there's certainly, this deserves at least a special mention or a star or something next to this one. I think I suppose the question is asked, and it was brought up by both of you commenting on it, is the processes and agreements or contract, terminology and coverage could have been in place that could have stopped that. All that was needed was for one person to ask, what happened to, the information? Where were you working on this, and what has been done with it? And that this would have been down at zero, this would have not happened. So I think, yes, it's timely reminder that that scrutiny, that kind of audit, when you're bringing people in from outside into your organization, have you a process in place to ensure that the data they were working on or the content they were creating for you is safely behind the wall again after it's been worked on? So yeah, this was definitely a fail of a huge degree by cybersecurity professionals, and I think it's a failure on their professionalism that we're exposing here for sure.
It's it in one sense, it is a measure of how of the things that cybersecurity professionals are up against, yes. Right? The fact that Absolutely. This is the agency that has all the, they know better. These are the folks who should be able to handle these kind of situations, and they're setting the precedent that we're all following. And in this case, they're even having difficulty with this. This is just hard is the wrong word, but this is the challenge that I think we're all up against for sure.
Absolutely. So what's our score with that in mind? So James, what we going for
10
here?
all the way, and I give them an 11 if I could.
Let's not start that again. Stefano?
Same here. It's a 10, but it's a very, very big 10.
This week's epic fail score is 10.
And I have to concur. You've convinced me there. So yes, a big 10 from us this week. Before we go, let's flip the mood with this week's mighty win, something genuinely uplifting from the cyber world, and maybe we all need that after the epic fail this week. A moment of competence, cleverness, or a rare feel-good story in a sometimes gloomy landscape. And this week's mighty win comes from you, Stefano. What have you got to share with us today?
Yeah, this is a story, Gordon, that originally was potentially getting into the epic fail territory, but luckily it went on a totally different direction at the end. But let's clarify. For years, we joked about an AI that wakes up, becomes evil, and decides to hack the planet. Google's latest report suggests that now we reached a better version of that plot. A cybercrime Q pointed an AI of a popular open source admin tools, and it came back with a 0-day multi-factor bypass and a ready-to-run Python exploit. The bug itself is almost disappointingly mundane. A high-level logic flow and a bad trust assumption in the login flow, that is exactly what allowed the exploitation to work. And the question is that the AI do not stop it at finding these into these admin tool, but went beyond generating the Python script to detonate this weakness and potentially giving the attacker the chance not just to exploit the flow, but also to run commands. So the good news is that Google took that operation before it turned into a worm fest, and the vendor is shipping a fix. The bad news is that we just moved from theoretical AI-assisted hacking to operational reality. But the good news, again, the good news is that these ones went detected by Google Threat Intel Raiders, and I think that more in general is a sign that we can potentially anticipate some of these attackers, some of these weaknesses by just running periodically checks on our tooling's code and tooling's behavior to avoid a similar situation. So this is, from one side, a bit concerning. From the other side, a wake-up call to start scrutinizing from our direct, let's say, AI agentic systems and potentially bug hunter mechanisms, the way to ensure a more structured and well-protected set of applications to integrate in our ecosystem. So that is what I think is important, and this is the meaning of the good news today. James, what you think?
Yeah, some good news there, right? AI helps the good guys win one. I think it highlights some of the things we talked about earlier in the episode about how finding the kind of the boring bug, the hard to, the thing that people are just you can't perceive or can't deal with. AI is good at that, and that's a great example of how the right use of AI can end up being a win. The fact that it developed the full-on exploit certainly provides the cautions you talked about. And I think another point that hits me from hearing you speak of this is I'm glad we're using AI responsibly. I'm glad we can bring that tool set to bear to help us out, because the cycle, right, of vulnerability, bug, exploit in the wild is really getting fast. So the cost not on our side, and we really need to do the right things with AI going forward in order to do well in this kind of new environment. So some good news there with a little caution too. Gordon, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that idea that, it can help with the fix, as well as the hack is something to, to remember. And I guess the challenge for all of us is, can we be fixing faster than the hacks are being discovered? And even if we can't get ahead of that, then at least we are responding as quickly as possible. And that's what this Mighty Win story was all about, realizing that as it was coming to fruition.
To conclude from my hand, the thing is that potentially this news is giving us an idea that potentially can be implemented, at least in the big environments where there are a number of tools that are used, to start having a sort of lab that every now and then check the resiliency, check the validity of the tools that this organization is using by internal meaning, by internal purposes, testing if there is any new bug that an AI having the chance to interact with these tools can detect. So these ones went good because while the, let's say, cyber criminals found the weakness and was having the chance to start adopting this weakness to exploit these tools, from the other side, Google basically detected the same and offered immediately support to develop a patch. And we anticipated with the same, let's say, arsenal, with the same tools, the AI-powered bug hunting things, we anticipated the bad guys. In the future, I think this is exactly what is needed. Every single big structure should implement a specific set of periodic checks into the tools that they use, especially for VPNs, especially for remote administrations, to ensure that they can spot and anticipate before the cyber criminals these type of weaknesses.
You have been watching Hack Talks.
So that's a huge thanks to Stefano and James for joining me this week. And thanks to you for tuning in. This has been Hack Talks from NetWitness Incident Response. We'll see you next time. So it's goodbye from me, Gordon, in Glasgow.
Ciao from Rome.
Trust but verify from Florida. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Ciao, bye-bye.